Everything is sexist.
Premier child molester platform.
Everything is racist.
Appeals to the modern audience.
To the modern audience.
The modern audience feel the sting of shame for the rest of their putrid lives.
Revoking several DEI mandates.
Everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
Hey! I think I figured out what killed culture. So y'all won't shut the hell up about your stupid opinions. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. Can we let the funny fiction thing be the funny fiction thing without shoving your asshole in it?
Give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money.
Showtime! If you look in the description, there is a link to a Patreon page. Now, if you find my content to be some level of entertaining and you want to support it, I would ask that you check that out, throw a couple bucks my way. If you do, I'll be putting your names at the end of the videos once I start getting patrons. If you look down there, you will also see a link to a Discord server. You can go ahead and join that if you want. You can hang out, or you can just call me an idiot. I really don't care. In fact, if you subscribe to the Patreon, you get access to a couple extra channels in the Discord. Nice little 2-for-1 deal there. And finally, there is a link to a Rumble page. You see, I edit these videos to better fit YouTube's content policies. So if you want to see the versions that have all the spicy stuff in it, go ahead and check the Rumble page out. On with the video! Is culture dead? Seems to be, once again, a relevant conversation. It's showed up a couple times. It rears its head every now and then. I've met some people who are truly convinced that at least in these United States we don't have a culture anymore. But it seems to have decided to be a relevant conversation once more due to the recent delay of GTA 6. Oh, hi, Kitty. Say hello to everyone. And so I kind of wanted to talk about it, and I guess really spend a minute kind of deep diving into the current culture, or the current situation of the culture we live in the West, and specifically in the United States, because that's where I live. And I find personally that it is a bit more complicated than just culture is dead. I would actually argue personally that I don't think it's dead, but it is radically shifting. No. No. Sit in your chair? No. How about in your box? Yeah. So, what do I mean? What do I mean when I say that I believe the culture is starting to drastically shift? There is a change in how we share and consume media and consume culture in general, as a whole. I want to go back a bit. I want to cover the past 20 years, really. You could probably go back further than this, but really I think the most relevant part is going to be within the past 20 years. We go through the 80s and the 90s, and, obviously that is probably some of the best culture in the modern day that we as a nation have produced. And coming off of that, we seem to be at our peak, especially by the by the 90s and early 2000s. The US is the superpower, is the strongest nation, essentially. We are exporting our culture everywhere. Early 2000s is the golden age of video games. Now, granted, the war on terror started then, but arguably, at least for a portion until that became kind of a hot button topic. That was the most united the country's ever been. It is. But yeah, no, we entered an era of, like, I'd say peak culture. Again, early 2000s, golden era of video games. That's when giants, like behemoths of the cinema industry, like the MCU, came around. Just in general, the culture of the US was thriving. But at the same time, obviously, there have been powers that be that have been working in this country for, well, before this, mind you. This is going back to post-World War II. There's been multiple attempts at communist uprisings and socialist movements and things of that nature within this country. And by the time you get to, like, the 2010s, we get, you know, the Gamergate thing with everything's political this, and, you know, go threaten your game developing job to put your woke crap in that. And that's kind of when we really got the start of the culture war. And that's where you would, I guess that's where people would say the start of the death of culture began. You know, from there on is when woke ideology started getting pushed into everything. You know, SJW crap was making it in the movies at the time. You had, obviously, the Gamergate. Sweet Baby Inc. became a thing during that time, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was not long after the initial Gamergate. Like I said, you get into the 2010s, the woke crap starts happening. That gets injected into everything, and that leads us to here, where woke ideology is starting to die out. And I know, that's kind of just kind of everywhere, not super in-depth summary of what happened. I'm not trying to do a deep dive on how we got to here, or the history of the culture war. That's not exactly the idea behind this. But I do think it's kind of important to go into this understanding kind of what happened. So, had good culture, had thriving culture, ideologues injected themselves to destroy it, now we're here. And the reasons that I've heard people say that our culture is dead, that we don't have culture anymore, is because there has been a loss of talent in these large industries, especially the video game industry. There is... excuse me, you know, just kind of less entertainment coming out. We're getting less movies, less video games, less comic books, all that stuff. We're getting less of that. And just because overall the culture war did murder a lot of popular things. Marvel used to be a household name. Now nobody cares about it. As of time of recording this, it was that weird Star Wars day that I could give less of a shit about because I hate Star Wars. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hear anybody or see anything related to Star Wars, because Star Wars is dead. But, I would not say this means culture is dead. This means that the giants have died. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean the giants have died? Have died. Well, I mean a couple things. We've entered into an era where large, content, media creation companies, they don't want to experiment and try making anything new like they did back in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. They want to stick to what they've already produced that they know will work. This is why we're getting umpteen million reboots, and why Assassin's Creed has been going on and on and on, despite the fact that Ubisoft has just about made that thing about as... let me rephrase this. Despite the fact that Ubisoft literally has ended the entire story of that franchise, and there is no continuation point past the third game. Shit like that. Excuse me. Companies don't want to let things die, they don't want to produce anything new, because they only want what works. And on top of that, you have all these ideologues who broke in and started to interject their own stuff. So literally all we've been getting from these large companies, these staples in entertainment, has been just the same thing over and over with the same garbage content, and they don't want to produce anything else. However, that doesn't mean the culture is dead. Because what happened essentially is these companies formed a monopoly, and they have fought tooth and nail to keep that monopoly. When was the last time you saw like a one-off movie like, I don't know, District 9? Or like those crappy one-off video games we used to get in the early 2000s, or, you know, niche, you know, comics that aren't an already well-established, you know, character, or things like that. When's the last time that Transformers decided to do something that wasn't just a reboot of G1? You know? But there's a couple of phenomenons that have happened here that I think are really playing into this that a lot of people are ignoring. The first one is that these large companies have noticed the shift in the cultural ideology. They have noticed that woke ideology is not popular, probably never was popular, and is starting to lose them money. You know, a couple videos ago, I talked about the Minecraft movie, and basically what I said there is, it's stupid fun for the sake of stupid fun. It's like the bad movies we used to get back in the day. It didn't try to push politics or anything, and as long as there are good movies being made as well, it's fine. Or the Dune movies. The Dune movies are exceptionally good, and their end goal is to just be a good Dune movie. Or the Doom video games. id Software has released 2 bangers already, with the end goal of just making the best possible Doom games. And I would not be surprised if that's what they do with the 3rd one, because it's id Software. The other phenomenon is smaller creators, smaller indie and you know, AA video game companies or smaller movies are becoming, they're getting more eyes on them. They're becoming more popular. Actually, I know there is 3 phenomena. One of them is hooked up to this one, but I'll get into it. But you know, Helldivers, last year, 2024. Nobody heard of that game, and it just blew up within a week. Like, it blew up so bad that Arrowhead had to spend nearly a month increasing their server size because they were expecting a player count of 6,000. 6,000, and they got 400,000. Or, what's another good example? What's another good example of an indie game that kind of blew up? This is probably not the greatest example because it is definitely a smaller game, but within the niche it's in, Tempest Rising came out, and the RTS fans are happy with that one. That was made by an indie company and published by 3D Realms, which hasn't been important since the 90s. That's another thing too. You got like New Blood. Pretty much every game they release is a well-received banger that has gotten eyes on it. And the other phenomenon kind of attached to this is YouTubers. This has been going on since the early 2000s, but especially now, most people get their content from YouTube. Most people are going and watching people like Tim Pool for their news. They're watching just random content on YouTube for their entertainment. They're not watching TV. They're not entirely watching movies either. I mean, movies is like still surviving because of the experience of going to a theater. But again, most people are just watching stuff on YouTube now. And a lot of people complain about the introduction of Unreal Engine, kind of go back to gaming a little bit, or Unreal Engine 5 specifically, but that has opened up doors for tons of indie developers. It is so easy to use. I'm working on a game in it even. I taught myself how to use it in a week. We are not seeing the death of culture. We are seeing the death or the death of cultural, oh crap, I forgot the word now. Oh, that's just wonderful. We are watching the death of cultural monopolies. Large companies that have been around for ages and have been the #1 producer of our media for so long are losing their position. They gambled too hard on BlackRock and a woke ideology, and they're paying the price, and they're not going to be able to hold on to their throne very well anymore, with a very few exceptions. I mean, I know Bethesda is trying to get a lot of their goodwill back with Oblivion Remastered, which people are super happy with, but at the same time, Microsoft decided to up their prices, Nintendo super upped their prices, and Sony's still being a bunch of dicks. They're not going to be holding the same cultural relevance they had, or at least not their developers. You know, PC building has become very popular now because the console war has just gotten too shit-assy. When it comes to, like, movies, the franchises that held the cultural superiority for so long, they're dying, they're croaking, and they've left room for new things. I don't think Dune could have had the power it has if it wasn't for the growth of... if it wasn't for the slow death of Star Wars. Which is funny, because Star Wars is inspired by Dune. 40K is starting to really shoot itself in the ass cheeks a bit. I don't want to say that it's hurting just yet, but it's kind of showing the signs of it. People are looking for alternatives to that, which will allow tabletops to have, you know, new IPs, new ideas. It used to be, like, okay, first you had radio. Back in the 20s and stuff. Or before that, you had radio. And radio was the king, and then TV came around. TV killed it. There's a whole song, TV Killed the Radio Star, or something like that. I forget the name of it specifically. And that was a long-ass time ago. That was before just about everybody watching this video was born, unless there's like one 70-year-old. Yet, at the same... Okay, so this is something that's happened before. You know, plays kind of gave way to radio. Radio kind of gave way to TV and movies. TV started to give way to video games until the TV companies freaked out and did everything they could to limit that. And that's just it. Why is it that this is a thing that happens normally, yet it hasn't been allowed to happen? And we're acting like culture's dying because of it. Now, if you want to make... Actually, no, you can't even make the argument that there is a lack of talent or a lack of creativity, because it's just gone elsewhere. Nobody who has talent and creativity wants to go work for these large studios or these AAA gaming companies. I sure as hell wouldn't. I had an idea for a game and I didn't want to sell it off to these people. I'd be limited by DEI and shareholders. I wanted to make it myself. So I went indie. 2023, the FNAF movie, that was made by a small, essentially an indie horror film company, based off a game that was made by one dude that released the first 3 installments in a year. It made a shit ton of money. Minecraft, going back to the Minecraft movie, it's not AAA, it's not indie anymore, it's basically AAA owned by Microsoft, but it started as an indie game too. Culture is shifting. The old giants are collapsing. The monopoly on culture is dying. And that's a good thing, because monopolies are never good. If you want to see a thriving culture again like we had, we're on the right track for that. I get that it sucks that some of your favorite things are probably gonna die in the process. I used to be a huge fan of 40K. I'm not anymore because of the direction it went. Does it suck to see the way it's going? Yes, but I'd rather see 40K die and leave a power vacuum for new games and new ideas and new stories to take root. I'd rather see the MCU and Marvel Comics go under so that things like... crap, what's the company that makes the Transformer comics right now? I can't remember. So things like that company and their comics can become popular, and that smaller movies that are made more out of passion, or movies like the Dune movies, again, it's a big movie, but it was made out of passion by a fan of Dune. I'd rather see those things take root in favor of watching these cultural icons die. I'd rather see Halo, a game that I grew up playing, be laid to rest so that games like Helldivers and other shooters can take its place. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm all for let the IP burn, because I'm not. If an IP is good, if the people making it are trying to make a good product, let them do it. Again, it's software. The new Doom games have been awesome. Excuse me. This is going to be a controversial one. I'm not exactly speaking from my own experience, but my dad has been a Trekkie since the 60s. He really likes Strange New Worlds, and he liked Picard. If these franchises are doing good and trying to do good, or if they manage to course correct and save themselves, more power to them. But don't assume that culture is dead, talent is gone, and creativity went the way of the dodo, because Warner Brothers, Microsoft, and Activision, and whatever else can't produce a good thing to save their own asses. Look to the indie stuff, look to the smaller stuff. YouTube has actually been reworking their algorithm to boost up smaller content creators, because their big names have all started retiring and moving on with their lives. That's part of how I've been able to get like 500 views a week on a video. Minus my last one, which I'm not surprised. I kind of expected that to happen going in, but look at indie studios, look at the smaller movies, look at YouTube, look at indie games. There's shit tons of them on Steam. Or make your own thing. Culture isn't dead, it's just shifting, it's reforming like it's done before. This is nothing new. It's just that thanks to a mixture of the culture war, the internet, and the monopoly that these media companies have had for so long, it is so much more socially charged than it normally is. I'm not gonna say this as a fact, but when I took my history classes, I don't remember nearly this much drama being a thing when TV became popular. Don't look at this as a death of culture. Look at this as a rebirth of culture. And look at it as a chance to get your own foothold in culture. I have ADHD brain. I've got 2 projects going right now on top of this YouTube channel. I'm working on a shooter game, which, if you're interested, join my Discord and I can actually send you a link to it. And I'm working on my own tabletop because I wanted my own form of 40k. I wanted to make a competitor for 40k that would provide, the similar feel while being a good game and not doing the same garbage that 40k is doing. This is an opportunity for people like you and me to shape culture. Kind of going back to my grifter video and my tribalism video, those are people who are trying to shape culture the wrong way. They're trying to quote-unquote militaristically doing it. They're trying to force culture to be what they want. But if you want to see good culture, if you want to see a good culture once again, now is your chance. This is how you shape culture. The giants are falling. So make your mark now. Instead of focusing on the culture war, instead of focusing on the political climate of this culture, instead of focusing on the death of these giants and seeing it as the end, look at it as a new beginning and look at it as a chance for you to do something. Because this is how you will shape culture, and this is how we will have good culture once more. Culture isn't dead. Creativity isn't gone. And talent isn't forgotten. You have it. So do something with it, because now's the perfect time to do it.
Wanna say something, kitty? Yep.
thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. I am going to again ask that you give the Patreon a look, and the Rumble a look, and the Discord server a look. If you want, you can join, hang out, or just call me a piece of shit. I really don't care. Do what you want. And if you subscribe to the Patreon, there's you get access to an extra channel, a couple extra actually. So it's about a little 2-for-1 deal. Anyways, thank you again for watching. Have a good day.